All right, I just wanted to look at a psychological aspect that relates to potential violent confrontation, particularly in a pre-fight stage where somebody is trying to intimidate you. So the first two ways in which somebody will assault you can be non-physical, and that's through intimidation, the way they look at you, the way they present their persona to you, or strive to impose their will in some way, initially non-physically. And then that can escalate to verbal threatening, such as "I'll do this" or whatever else. Both of those are non-physical. And of course it progresses to the physical, which could be getting hit, getting grabbed and manhandled, could involve weapons, could involve multiples with weapons. But the initial interview, if you like, dipping a toe in the water, probe, is often done by the amateur to see how you respond, and it can be done deceptively or aggressively. So if somebody is trying to intimidate you in some way, there's certain ways in which you can respond to it. You can respond with great strength that suggests risk if you push what you're going to do, which could de-escalate and dissuade the attitude altogether, or it could put petrol on the fire. Context dictates content. Or it might be you feign capitulation, or that you are really not interested, in order to create the opportunity to escape or create the opportunity to preemptively strike by deception if you feel the enemy is strong. So in the War in Text, they wrote, Sun Tzu and Musashi and Clausewitz, they talked about, if shown great strength, feign capitulation until you're in a position of strength. If shown weakness, exploit weakness with great strength. So, know when to use psychological warfare and when not to. But most individuals will use it in a nefarious way as a means to interview you, to see how you respond. Right? So one simple little bit of advice that's been around for a long time, that's come down the chain from many, many people who have done it all before, is how do you deal with that hard stare? Someone makes a hard stare at you. Well, depending on what you want from it, really. If you recognise that feigning capitulation will make you a victim, and you understand that now, then you might change the way you respond on an innate level. So on an innate level, if somebody gives you a hard stare and it triggers your amygdala into some sort of, if there's a threat ahead, then it will elicit the biochemistry. It will elicit an adrenal response, an escalation in heart rate, and all that paraphernalia that goes with it. If you don't understand that, you'll misinterpret that for fear. And if you are a bit of a wet wipe, that fear will turn quickly into its bigger cousin, which is panic and complete emotional breakdown. Condition black, you ain't doing nothing. So ideally what a criminal wants in a motivating way is to intimidate you. They want you to capitulate completely, so that there is not necessary to go to the next physical level, just a necessary sign that tells them it's safe to do so if they choose. There'll be no retaliation. That's what they want. And that begins with non-verbal communication, non-verbal body language. So 55% of all communication is non-verbal. The body language, the way you express your facial expressions and your body position, physiology. 38% is, when you are speaking in linguistics, is the volume, pitch, pace, tonality. All of these things are 38%. And only 7% is the actual words that you communicate. That's communication. So 55% of body language comes from non-verbal. So if someone gives you a hard stare, right, fucking gives you a problem, like, and you respond with eye contact, breaking eye contact, looking downward, then immediately you are giving them the signal that you want. Or if you go wide-eyed and then look down. But if you break eye contact downwards and your physiology changes downward, you are telling them you are willing prey, right? So as an alternative, if you want to de-escalate the situation, as you should, but without creating that victim persona, Now, what some people would say, losing face. Then breaking eye contact in a lateral direction, either left or right, done in a specific way, gives a very different message. Right? So someone's giving you a heart stare. The key, first of all, is the 4-second rule. Maintain eye contact for 4 seconds. And then break eye contact to the left or to the right. And do it with a sneer or do it with a unimpressed look. But break eye contact to the left or right as you move, keeping the subject in your periphery. This gives the message of, I don't give a fuck about you, but I'm not interested. Conversely, the other end of that spectrum would be, if somebody is giving you a hard stare, is to give an unblinking hard stare that absolutely doesn't stop. And summon state. And as you do, you'll notice certain physiology changes. Nostrils may flare. You just get a kind of contemptuous, dark, hooded look. But maintain eye contact, unblinkingly if you can be. And that indeed will escalate. Now, if that escalates it to the level where the person doesn't want no more, he capitulates, recognises you're a larger animal and all the rest, but there's a good chance it will escalate into a dick measuring contest, which you don't want. The point of the video is just understand non-verbal body language. So again, if someone's giving you a hard fucking stare, and you look and you're wide-eyed and you look down, or you look and you just break eye contact immediately, you're saying one thing. That's not that might not belong. So let's say 20 feet away, someone gives you a hard stare because you walked in on something that's not your business, maybe. And he looks at you and you just, look down and just walk off. Well, it belongs there, maybe, right? The point is, if somebody's trying to interview you in some way, doing that gives a different message to that. Right? That's the psychological warfare tactics. We all know it. And of course, hard stare or continuing it or progressing it will escalate it to another level. But first of all, understand that people that use such tactics to intimidate are interviewing you. And if they need to interview you, then they need to make sure you're a good target selection. Because a serious player doesn't give a fuck about what you can do. Right? They don't need to interview you first. They don't need to make a lot of noise in order to get themselves where they need to be. They'll just get close to you and hurt you. And they'll probably use deception to get close or just literally come toward you. And you need to be able to pick up on those people. So, but understanding these psychological tactics is very, very useful, right? Because you can use them both ways. The other thing about intimidation is if intimidation is done in an imposition of will sense, then the person's going to be aggressive. And it will teach you certain body language. So in the next few videos, I'm going to show you some of those pre-threat behavioural cues that can be deceptive, incidental, and aggressive. The aggressive ones are easy to understand. What I'll leave you with is the escalation to some people that before they can engage in violence has to start with pre-fight dialogue. And what often you'd see is you see an individual here giving an individual here a problem. This one don't want to be here, but he can't immediately leave. And this person's giving it a large one on what we call a fringe. So the fringe would be arm's length and a step before I can touch you or you can touch me. You're on a fringe. So when you start pull out a projectile weapon, I can't hurt you until I move toward you. Right? And quite often I would find that people were quite brave on the fringe, particularly if you're on a door and there's a camera there and a queue of people there. They talk a lot of shit. But from the fringe, if somebody is looking to intimidate, they're not getting the right messages straight away. They will strive to use aggressive body language, verbal threatening, disjointed speech. They'll puff themselves up, balloon left and right, their finger point, various sort of things will come into play. And they're precursors. And what that person's getting ready for is combat. He's not ready yet. It's an amateur. He's got to get there. So he might start on 3 with his agitation, 4, 5, 6, but he's got to get to 10 before he can actually come forward and do what he wants to do. And in that time, he's hoping and praying that his interview is going to show that you're a good victim. So if you stand there, bored, maintaining eye contact, maybe looking at your watch, you give a message that you're not intimidated. And that can be enough to make them back up and walk off like what Jeff Thompson used to call a slippery palmed milkman who's just dropped his bottle. And they quite often walk off saying, yeah, well, I'll see you again, in order to try and gratify themselves in some way. But you can also get stupid people. You get stupid people that stood with two of their mates, two of their sniggering little betas or omegas. And for the sake of losing face, they'd rather risk a beating. So they continue with their bullshit. Well, if you watch this and you understand it, right, somebody will go from constant threatening, you fucking prick, I'll fucking knock you out, I'll put you on the fucking floor, I'll kick your fucking head, and I'll do this. Disjointed speech with profanity. And eventually they will drop down to a monosyllabic kind of phase where they become only capable of single syllables. Yeah, you fucking prick. Yeah? And? So? Like this. When they become monosyllabic and drop down to single syllables, this is a clear indication that the interview is coming to an end. And I am potentially ready to get to 10 before I can engage in the attack. If you understand this, if you understand the animal, you can almost time it. And you can preempt whenever you want. It's quite entertaining. But nonetheless, intimidation is one of the tools that criminal element will use, or any aggressive individual that wants to impose his will on another will use, including you as a place. And I understand that begins with, the way you stare, the way you look, the way you hold your body, your non-verbal body language, before it moves to linguistics. We'll look at a couple more clips like this. We'll look at those kind of aggressive pre-threat cues in a demonstrable form so you can see, as well as methods of deception. But for now, if you want to de-escalate without taking a knock to your confidence, then show a neutral, I couldn't give a fuck about you, but I've got better things to do. And if somebody is hard staring you, remember 4 seconds, maintain eye contact, and then break to the left or to the right as you walk off. If it progresses from there, well then do what you've got to do. Anyway, interesting little tidbit. Peace.